use AI to help you become more productive, true, but not just to become more productive for productivity's sake. Do it so you can become more creative, that you can create more and you can choose more and you can edit more and you can
use your
happier.
time better.
Yeah, meet your friends more, go to the pub more, go outside and enjoy the sunshine more. Don't just use it to make 10,000 more things. Make one thing amazing and make more money from it.
Welcome to another episode of Thinking Deeper. Today I am venturing out into uncharted territory with my guest. You've probably seen him around quite a bit on the TV, on radio. He's had a few TEDx talks. Sometimes I actually wonder, because I see so much of him, that whether he's an AI or whether he's himself. I know today he's definitely the physical version. It is, of course, co-founder of YourFlock and international speaker Dan Sodergren. Welcome to my show, Dan.
Thank you very much for being here. Yes, I am very much here. I'm not a hologram.
You're too far for me to check, but I'll take your word for it.
You'd have to take my word for it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I am a real human being.
And we are, of course, talking about the much talked about topic at the moment, which is AI. So before we start my quite unique format of a podcast, I just want to start off by giving people an opportunity to really understand what artificial intelligence means in real layman's terms.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really interesting one. In real layman's terms, I'd most probably not call it artificial intelligence. I'd actually just call it clever computers or computer stuff. So it's more to do with the fact you get lots of these clever computers and they've all learned loads of stuff. Normally it's the internet or whatever database you've got, these large language models as they're called, and they've collated all this stuff together to then create this intelligence. And I think one of the misnomers, of course, is artificial intelligence, because there's nothing really artificial about it. It's just actually just computer intelligence. Yeah. So it's your computer's intelligence with a tremendous amount of information in it. Let's say tens of millions, if not billions of data points. And so it can almost look like it's human. It's not human. It's not human yet.
Before we get to that debate around the human versus AI, if we were talking, and I've just said in simple terms, where would we first have experienced an element of AI? Would you say like the calculator was one of the first things that people might relate it to?
You must probably relate that to computer power, absolutely. The first bit of artificial intelligence I think if you've ever played a computer game and you've played it against the computer, that is artificial intelligence. You weren't playing against a person, you were playing against a computer. And that's actually what artificial intelligence got very good at. So if you know, years and years ago, it was beating people at chess, and then it beat people at AlphaGo. And AlphaGo, it was meant to be impossible to beat anyone at AlphaGo because computers couldn't do it. Then computers did this. It's because of Demis Hables, who's a friend of a friend. And that's what it is. So actually Demis's background is purely in gaming and other things. He made things like Railway Tycoon and Theme Park, if you know those games years ago. So if you ever play things like Sims, that's artificial intelligence, technically, or computer intelligence. So yeah, I'd say gaming is the quickest and easiest way, but it's like en masse now. It's a much bigger thing than just playing a game.
And just for listeners and followers that don't game, in practical terms, where else would we have had some element of AI influence?
In lots of different places where you might not have thought about it. Like, let's say if you bought insurance, that's most probably had artificial intelligence or certainly machine learning. Any time when you kind of laugh and says computer says no, that's obviously a computer saying no. Yeah. So, it became such a thing. It became a reference and then a meme and then a comedy skit. So, AI has been around, or the concept's been around for just about the 1960s, if not before. And actually, machine learning and artificial intelligence has been around for a very, very long time. So the thing that we saw kind of appear, which is OpenAI, and then lots of people have been talking about it because it was made free and it kind of changed the world in last November. I mean, I was talking about it in my TEDx talk a year before, and I've been talking about artificial intelligence for a decade before that. But the actual companies have been going for 15, 16, 20 years. But the knowledge behind it, of course, because we've all known about, robots and all these other things for a very, very long time. And the fear about it goes back even further. But we won't talk about that right now.
Yeah, and that is a scary point, which we will address further in the actual interview. When we talk about all these different elements of AI, there's obviously now a huge debate around the future of where this is going and the fear. But before we start all of that, and for anybody that's new that's joined this podcast, our format is very unique in that we have a singing bowl that is played at the beginning of the session. This opens the energies and aligns both mine and my guests' energies so that there is an open and honest conversation around the topics that we will discuss. The bowl itself actually has little pieces of paper in it, which have words on them, which Dan will now randomly select from which we will then continue our conversation. So I'm leaving the universe to determine the flow of the conversation and how we go about answering some of those questions. So Dan, if you can pick your first piece of paper.
No, I can. It'd be even more fascinating today if I give it a bit of a rummage, even though, of course, everyone would know that the rummaging doesn't make any difference.
Nope.
It just makes me feel better as a human being. You could argue that it changes the universe. It doesn't, of course, but there you go. So intuition, there you go.
Okay, well, that's quite an interesting topic. So when I think about AI, and I think about all my interests and all my kind of focus around mindfulness and spirituality, intuition seems to be one that I really try and kind of harness more and more as time goes on. And experts are now saying that there is a possibility, if not a probability, that these are really just inherent biochemical reactions
I'm afraid so,
in our brains that our bodies are doing. So human intuition essentially is just an algorithm, it's a biochemical algorithm.
That's a beautiful way of looking at it, yeah.
So if that was the point, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, robots are coming into play. You're going to be able to have a robot in your home. They're saying that they will learn behaviors from human beings.
Okay. This is all very futuristic. It's good. I'm a tech futurist.
You are a futurist.
I'm allowed to talk about it. Okay, yeah. Fascinating.
So is this not then something for us to be maybe not concerned about, but is this not something for us to be discussing at length, in that if that learned behavior, that inherent behavior that we have as human beings is then potentially for that robot is learnt, then, and they learn at such a faster pace, then are they not also going to become quite sentient and have those emotions similar to us?
Well, my intuition on that one is that the answer is no.
I like what you did there.
I'm just trying. See, could a computer do that? The answer is, of course it could. I've just repeated what you said. But intuition is very, very important, isn't it? And we do believe it to be like a human trait. But we also believe that things like creativity and like taking amazing photos and writing amazing essays and all these things were human traits in some respect. You always got someone who's trying to defend the status quo, especially if they're a human being and they're saying, well, only humans can do this. It's the only way you can do it. Actually, when you look at what's happening a lot with AI, we're learning more and more that actually all those things aren't true. Human beings can do it, yes, but they're much better utilizing AI to help them do it as well. So you can be an amazing doctor, but you're an even better doctor if you use AI. You can be rubbish at marketing and learn. I mean, I did the AI marketing course, so I would talk about that, but you could have no idea really about marketing, but you could become very good at marketing by utilizing an AI to do that with you and then maybe for you. But if you are very creative, let's say, the newest studies out there at the moment are saying that the AI is not better than the top 1% of people who are creative. Now, that 1% might also be able to use their intuition to become more creative or to create things that are better, yeah? So again, it's about what's the outcome of that intuition and also what do we mean by it without getting too bogged down by kind of Sapir-Whorf hypothesis and these kind of things. But if you say, my intuition is a gut feel that you have something about something, well, that gut feel is dependent on what you've just eaten. So that's why we call it a gut feel. This is chemical reaction. So it's an absolute thing. I can make you feel in a much better mood by giving you a series of drugs. Of course I can. Now, does that mean your intuition's better or is it worse? Now, you can say, I've got a feeling, but you know for a fact that feeling is in your head. So can a computer have a feeling? Well, most probably not. But can it intuit? Well, it's got 1 billion data points. So it could intuit quite well. In fact, most probably better than you could. So if you said, I don't know, use your intuition about someone, you might use micro expressions without knowing it, which is why they're called micro expressions.
Yeah.
So you would pick up on that vibe that you had with somebody, but somebody else might not pick up on it. But that's just because they're better at picking up on micro expressions than you are.
Particularly at that subconscious level.
Particularly. Yeah. And you could argue it's a subconscious level. Absolutely. Yeah. You could argue that, yeah? Which, of course, this is the point of the brain, isn't it? So the brain itself kind of argues itself into this being. I think, therefore I am, and therefore you have this moment, yeah? But all that really is to do with chemicals, as you rightly said. You can influence how someone reacts and how someone feels about someone by altering the chemicals in their head. So we can't just sit there and go, well, computers can't do this. Well, it's likely, actually. Are you really doing it or are you just feeling it? And therefore, I know that emotions are important. And believe me, I've got to be careful with words because people always think that because I like using AI and because I like people using AI to make more money, I'm all about money and I'm all about computers. No, I'm about how can you change your life with a new technology? Now that, same with social media, same with digital marketing, same with everything.
So we're talking about productivity here. We're talking about utilising a piece of technology that allows us to become better at what we do so that we have more time.
Yes, exactly right. So if this is the case, let's say it's like a washing machine. machine, people might then go, oh my God, but I really prefer washing by hand. That's cool, that's up to you. But it doesn't mean that's a better thing to do. It means actually, I think personally, it's better to do your washing using a washing machine.
It's a choice.
It's a choice, but 200 years ago, I might have been shot for such a silly idea because people are like, well, I'm part of the Mangle Association and we've been mangling for whatever. It doesn't make that much difference, but it does to society. But on an individual level, use AI to help you become more productive, true, but not just to become more productive for productivity's sake. Do it so you can become more creative, that you can create more and you can choose more and you can edit more and you can
use
be
your
happier.
time better.
Yeah, meet your friends more, go to the pub more, go outside and enjoy the sunshine more. Don't just use it to make 10,000 more things. Make one thing amazing and make more money from it. So I'm much more about the
efficiency.
Even the efficiencies,
and the self.
Well, it's not even the efficiencies of kind of wrong word. And again, it might just be my intuition missing the point of what you're saying about efficiency. But some people look at efficiency and they say that's a kind of cold, calculated state. Efficiency is not good. It's not good for society. But I'm talking about time efficiency. The only thing you can't get back is time. Yeah. But if you've got a job and you can become just as good at that job, but it takes you half the time, I think we should be allowed to spend that half of our time enjoying life and doing things and meeting new people and traveling. Now, society might say, no, that means you should make twice as much money or be twice as more productive. But that's a society question. It's not an individual. And I think that's why I love AI, because it puts the power back into the hands of the individual. And that means it's your choice. Do you use it to help with your marketing and do it in a day a month, or do you spend 20 days a month doing your marketing? That's up to you as a solo entrepreneur.
I guess it's also perspective, because a lot of people, and the huge debate around existential crisis, this is something that is now, we're going to be extinct soon enough because machines are going to take over, and it's almost like a Hollywood movie. So I can understand.
It's quite a big jump there, though. Yeah. being quite efficient, existential crisis. Now, you could also argue existential crises, or crises, they come from when you stop growing. So when you stop growing as a person, there is a pain point. Now that growth, that's an intrinsic thing about life, isn't it? You're continually growing. I don't have to have any intuition around that. That's a fact, yeah? And if you're not growing, you're stalling. And therefore, if you could do something that makes you grow more, the better it is, isn't it? Now, is that always going to be better for society? But I can guarantee the existential angst that we might be feeling, or the crisis we might be having with work and engagement and all these things, this was coming before AI. AI has just extended this. COVID made that.
Well, climate change would actually be a big point.
Absolutely. And now everyone's panicking about, will AI take over the world and it will destroy us? Well, it's not likely to destroy us. It's likely to if it takes over the world at all, it's likely to help us, not destroy us, because it wouldn't be in its self-interest to destroy us. It doesn't make any sense. It's also like how people project onto AI and say, well, it's going to be evil. That might be because the way you look at the world is everything has to be evil. Now that's down to you. It's a deeper point here.
And quite a lot of influence, I guess, like from the media, the government, etc.
And there's some pretty weird reasons why there's lots of people with power that might not want AI to be used by the masses. And again,
or certain people that are saying they're not doing anything on AI anymore, when they probably are.
When they've just bought 10,000 computer chips that prove the fact that they are. And these people also own things
just
like
might be talking about Elon Musk here.
We may well be. I'm not necessarily not a fan, but if you look at what he's done with AI, it's quite funny because, of course, he was part of the OpenAI board many years ago. And this is when I knew the people here, and they told me this information. I always thought it was fascinating. That they kind of asked him to leave. And, of course, he's still got that kind of grimace about the whole thing. So, it's not surprising he came for them. It's not surprising he bought Twitter. It's not surprising he's made a massive data play. It is a bit disconcerting, of course, that he has the company that does brain chips that can go into the back of your head. Elon Musk has the potential to be a Bond villain. I'm not saying he is one. I'm just saying, if you look at all the companies he owns, it's like, this is a movie. This gets a bit freaky.
Yeah.
But let's not blame AI for that. We kind of let the richest man in the world own all those things.
Let's start a different angle of the debate, if you will.
This one says Elon Musk. Weird. No, it doesn't. that would be. It says fear.
Yeah, interesting. I love that. I love the way the universe works with this conversation. So fear is the unknown, and obviously this is where I think there's always going to be a problem, because when you listen to the likes of Dr. Geoffrey Hinton, who, for those, the godfather of AI, who worked at Google, left, because he was worried about just the rapid rate of growth and what is going to happen with it.
But also, Geoffrey, I don't know his personality or why he did it, but you've got to remember, he wasn't starting his career. He was ending his career, and then he tended. I think he's left one company. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have a job anymore. So I think we have to be sometimes aware of some people's PR angle on moments.
But isn't this the interesting point, though? This is what is fueling the fear in the common person that is watching the news, listening to the radio, Googling YouTube. If you listen to his conversation around the collision conference that just happened in Canada,
There's lots of negative things out there. I mean,
absolutely.
Even Mo Gowat,
yeah.
he did a brilliant interview. I think it was with Stephen Partner, was it?
Yeah.
And again, there's lots and lots of scary things out there. But a lot of this, again, I'm going to come back to.
Is it scaremongery or...
Is it scaremonger? I think there's a logical moment to it where, of course, fear is, false information appearing real, yeah? So there is always going to be bits where you can always twist anything. You got to remember, years and years ago, when the bicycle first came out, people believed that was the end, it was going to be the end of society as we knew it because we wouldn't use horses. And this is no word of a lie. It's well documented,
right.
Yeah? Same with gin. People said, gin's going to destroy the world and no, everyone's going to be drunk forever because it's so cheap and therefore we'll make it more expensive. That's why there's only 5 families that can make gin for a little while and that's why they made so much money. That's a different thing. Each one of these moments becomes the same thing. So you have a technical trigger. Computers are going to take over the world and it's going to destroy us all. Social media is going to do it. Can you not remember video games are going to destroy the world and destroying youth? Yeah. So again, every time we've got this folk, we've got these scapegoats and these folk devils, and now apparently there's immigration now. Apparently, if you believe certain bits of the right-wing newspapers, there's always someone to blame. There's always a thing. Now, AI is quite an interesting thing because you've got to remember there's no one AI. So whenever people talking about AI, it's like talking about computers. It's like there are better computers, there are quicker computers, there are slower computers, like cars. Our car's going to kill us all. Well, if you walk into the middle of the road and people are driving all the time, well, yeah. So maybe we create something called the Green Cross Code. That sounds like a concept, yeah. Do exactly the same, but for AI. Should you utilize AI to do stuff without any knowledge? It's a bit like, same thing with the AI marketing course. I say this in the course. It's like giving everybody a bicycle and then just saying, off you go, ride the bike. Most people would fall off a bicycle. And then would you blame the bike? Some people are. People are going, I've had a go in AI. It's rubbish.
Well, they want somebody to blame, don't they?
Exactly. But more importantly, should you be scared of your bicycle from then on in? Should you have fear on the bike? Well, you weren't taught how to ride a bicycle, so there should be an element of fear. And as you're learning, that fear will diminish when you get better on the bike. Does that make sense?
It does, but I don't feel this is, it's not relevant to this because I feel that even the higher kind of, researched professors of the world are claiming they don't know there's unknown capabilities of the potential of AI.
Absolutely. And
so I guess this is where the fear is a slightly different level, right? Because
you've got me. It's not like a bicycle because
I got you. Hang on. Yeah. Just for the record, everybody, I got Dan Sodergren.
On the principle alone, I was trying to simplify it to make it so it was more about bikes and about learning stuff. But you're absolutely right. The bike itself doesn't change all the time and become a motorbike. And that's what AI has now done. So it was a bicycle and over a bit of time, it's now become a motorbike. The exponential growth of its capacity is astounding, and now it's a faster and faster motorbike. But the principle is the same.
Yeah.
You are therefore going to be quicker than if you're walking because you're using a bike. Now it's a motorbike. It became a scooter. Now it's a motorbike, right? I don't know very much about motorbikes, so we'll stop there. But whatever a fast motorbike might be, but you'd have to learn, right? Now my point is a very simple one. If the plan is to get to A to B, and that is part of life, then you want to get, you can get there quicker and you can enjoy yourself at that moment, yeah?
Yeah, now, there are equal risks on that side, obviously.
But the reason why AI has done so well and therefore people are worried about its growth is because unlike other things, it's grown exponentially. So, for example, ChatGPT, it took the telephones, to get to 100 million users, it took the telephone 72 years. ChatGPT did it in 72 days.
Wow.
Right? I'll give you a lovely one, which only just came out. It was something like 159 years or something like that, actually, to get to 15 billion images that people took photos of. So photography itself from, I think it was something like 1759 upwards. You can Google it, it's fine. Anyway, point being, it took about 150 years. Yeah. It's taken less than 15 months for there to be 15 billion images created by generative AI. Yeah. So the amount of data that's been produced by people using it means that machines get better and better. And so you get this exponential growth, which is breaking all rules.
And it's kind of what we're feeding them as well. So
absolutely, yeah.
That's what the scary thing is.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be, I personally don't think that should be seen as fear. That should be seen as an opportunity. This thing gets better and better. Therefore, that's great. This thing becomes sentient, takes over the world and kills us all. I'm afraid that's a bit of a jump. I'm afraid it's a bit like saying electricity is going to kill us all. Well, it could do, but it's not going to because you don't put your fingers inside the plug.
Okay, so we look at ChatGPT as an example. Okay. OpenAI have just funded 1X, the robot Neo, which they're claiming there will be they've had prototypes already, and they'll be on sale by the end of this year. You will be able to physically see one, and it trumps what Elon Musk has done with his version. I can't remember what his robot was called.
Musk or whatever it was.
But, it's a lighter version. It's already had, if you consider the growth rate of ChatGPT and the amount of input everybody that's been using ChatGPT has put into
absolutely.
that language, that text base, then all they're going to do is plug in and play that into a robot, and then the robot will continue to evolve with all that information that they've taken from us.
Absolutely. Great. That sounds awesome. So again, I don't see where the fear has come yet, but I see what you're saying. The machine gets better and better. Awesome. Helps us more and more. Awesome. Does jobs that we don't want to do. Awesome. The world becomes a better place. Awesome.
The world
all of it's good.
Does it? And I think that's where the question mark always will be.
I think it does, because that's why I always talk about.
I like the idea of a robot cleaning my flat. I think it's great because I hate cleaning.
There's little Roomba things will do that.
And apparently that's what they can do. So I'm quite excited about the notion that I can have a robot cleaning my apartment.
I'm very excited by the principles. I think that's not a bad idea. You could do it with one of those little Roomba bots or whatever they're called. I don't have one, so I have no idea if they're any good. But it's not to say it's a bigger thing than just cleaning. But if you think about it for mining, or you think about it for farming, you think about it for lots of things where the work is done by human beings at the moment, and perhaps it doesn't need to be, then I think that's exciting, because that means that less people hopefully will be dying in those jobs, and actually those jobs we might get. Remember, we said the same thing about the tractor appearing when everyone was working in a field. We were all working in fields. 95% of us worked in fields. They were not the good old days. Okay, I hate to say it. I'm so we should go back. No, we shouldn't go back to those times, because it wasn't the good old days, and it certainly wasn't for everyone of a certain race as well. So I think there's an opportunity here where we get rid of some of the jobs that are boring. And I'm not saying it's not in a disrespectful way, but a lot of knowledge jobs doesn't need as much grunt work doing. And I know that people are talking about, medicine, and we need lawyers, and do we need as many lawyers? Do we need as many accountants? Do we need as many of those people?
No.
And what happens if they all do 2 days a week rather than 5 days a week?
Yeah.
Then they could spend more time looking after their relatives, their family, the very things, exactly, the very things that we've been saying have been crushed by capitalism.
I don't know how well that'll go, considering that the amount of money they bill each hour. Let's get straight on to another one. Otherwise, it's a debate that will...
This one says law. No, it doesn't.
Spirituality.
Oh, now I'm in trouble because AI doesn't have.
Well, you are secretly. He is a hippie, by the way. So
not even secretly.
Just because he's into AI and is a futurist doesn't necessarily mean he's not into spirituality.
He can be a techno hippie.
This is like a really interesting topic for me, because when I look at, if we were looking at intelligence versus intellect. And I feel like intellect falls into the AI bracket of its logic, its data collection, it's what you do with that data and use it to be, more productive. Whereas intelligence on a spiritual level is more about intuition. It's more about the 16 levels of your ego, how you will react to things. When we talk about AI, do you think, because now they're talking about kind of multimodal situations, aren't they? So they're saying that they're trying to grow AI into not just text-based stuff, but visual stuff, which you've just talked about with all the images
and videos,
and videos. So from an emotional perspective, where will we draw the line with people needing time to themselves when they're effectively spending so much time with AI? I mean, we talk about social media and how that's a distraction on its own. But what about being just...
being as human beings. I'm hoping that...
What's going to happen with
I'm hoping the AI revolution allows us more time to be. That's precisely my point. If I didn't believe that, then I wouldn't talk about it so much. It's just like if I didn't believe that entrepreneurship was a really good way to define yourself and to kind of create your own destiny, then I wouldn't talk about it so much. I wouldn't have helped thousands of people start their own businesses if it was only about making money. I'm purely about the social aspect and the social impact of these things.
I think that's because you're a good person and because you have good intentions with something that's so powerful like AI.
But that's all we can do.
I then wonder, and I guess it takes me back to that conversation that I heard with Jeffrey Hinton, in that, when you start to look at it getting into the wrong hands of people, and that the fact that we won't be able to control what is happening to us because we are being controlled by somebody we ultimately can't control.
Well, without being too pessimistic on that front, if you believe that the AI
Realist.
if you believe that the AI we've now got hasn't been around for a while, then I think you may have missed the meeting. Because it tends to be quite rare that a technology suddenly becomes onto the consumer side. It tends to have existed for a while somewhere else. So it's exactly the same principle with the internet. The internet was first done by other people first, and then we were given the internet, weren't we? Same with pretty much anything: gunpowder, electricity, fire. Those with power tend to have it to start off with. So if we believe that we're running the same AI as the super rich, then I think I don't know if that's going to be true. It'd be great if it really was an equalizer of all power moments. That, by the way, is exciting by itself. If it's true that this is the democratization of intellectual power, that's amazingly exciting. But I would imagine actually the governments most probably would have had this before we did.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, without being rude about it, the tech giants that knew what was happening had this beforehand, which is why when you look at people like, I think it was Grimes, who was married to Elon Musk, she came out, she said, well, with AI happening and with music changing, I'll give you 50% of all royalties when you clone my voice. Now, she said that way before everyone else, and I'm guessing because she knew where the world was going to go. Exactly. But that's only a guess.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Grimes or anyone else. I think it's just intellectually the right thing to do. But also I think it's philosophically, it's the right thing for her to do. Now, she may not have been told anything about Elon's plans or anyone else's plans, but it's likely they'll have plans before we will because they'll know stuff before we do. Do they have more powerful than AI than we do? It'd be amazing if they didn't, but I bet they do. If they do we now live in a post-truth world? And in fact, for a long time, we've been being manipulated? That's a much deeper point, which I don't want to think about.
You just said that. But there is an element of that I think about, because if we consider the conditioning that we have been going through all this time through the education system, culture, society, etc., and I feel like there's been an element of us waking up to that and realizing that, actually, I kind of like my spiritual space. I like I like the fact that I can be a bit more mindful and
I hope
think for myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like this now is a new chapter, almost a new process that they're creating because of all the data that they'll be able to use that is around us and about us, and then manipulate it so that it's of benefit to them. So it's almost like a new education system.
I suppose if you believe that,
because everything will be AI.
No, absolutely. And but again,
I don't believe it.
No,
I kind of have I have an opinion on that.
I haven't really thought about it to that extent, only because I believe that becomes not a nihilistic argument in itself, as in what would we do if that was the case?
Yeah.
So if that was the case, and in fact, everything you've been learning for the last 5 years has been driven by an AI machine, which is all seeing, all knowing and sentient, and therefore that controls the world population. What do we do about that? And my answer is always the same, which is you make sure you have a good life. You try to grow as a human being. You try to be nice to other people, and you try to use technology to make sure that you can make the world a better place. That's your answer, because there isn't any other way out, because you can't win it. Yeah. So I always think, actually, no, let's presume that hasn't happened. However, don't believe everything you see on the internet right now, because the cost of making a fake video is literally minimal. It's a couple of dollars, or maybe tops $10 to do it. You can clone my voice now. It was, I think about 6 months ago, it was something like 5 minutes of voice you'd need. So you'd only need this podcast. You can clone my voice. Now it's something like 5 seconds.
The whole Drake example.
Well, exactly. But now it's something like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's gone down 5 minutes to 5 seconds. It's insane, right? You can now do this is all part of that's what I do as a job, of course, teaching people about AI marketing. So there's an opportunity there. It's a huge opportunity. You can clone your own voice, yes. But then you can start thinking, how do I clone my own image? And there's an opportunity. Now, you could create this podcast with neither of us being there.
I know.
Quite instantly, right? Now, would people watch it? That's another question. As human beings, we don't tend to watch two computers playing chess. So most probably not, because we'd intuit, maybe, that it wasn't real. But most people now can't pick out fake videos because they've got so good. So then you start looking at, okay, if AI can create all these videos, I think the best way to look at it is not what will the government do with it. I think it's better, what can I do? How can I change the world and make it a better place? How can I clone myself 3 times over so I can sell my business to more people and make a difference? Now that's exciting, because that's a business. Now, most people in business say, I haven't got time to do all this other stuff. But now you've got time to do all this other stuff. Most people in business say, I haven't got time to be nice to the environment and do all these other things.
Yeah.
But now you've got time
Full
to.
circle.
Yeah, you can do it now. Now, if this one then says AI, then you've cheated. That'd be very odd.
It definitely will not say AI.
You've just picked ones that are mean. You've just picked.
We've covered control. So let's go with.
The next one says government, and next one says Facebook analytics. No, it doesn't. Hooray! I picked out a nice one.
So let's end on love, because I think that's a really interesting, and let's embrace the hippiness that's within us. Again, how will we measure? You have a daughter.
I do.
You love her unconditionally.
I do.
How will that ever be as natural or as pure or as sacred as you would feel it as AI progresses and evolves and does what it needs to do?
It's funny because I was asked to go on Radio 5 and talk about AI influencers, but also sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it just makes me smile because I had a humanistic, I had this thing that I was going to do. I was going to do a whole set on it. So if you think of AI at the moment, people potentially could start falling in love with AI machines, and they have done. In fact, there's a lady in America who's trying to marry her AI bot, and she's trying to marry it, of course, only in America, as people always would say at that moment. No offense to any Americans who are listening. But, Florida man, great thing to always Google if you want to. Anyway, point being is, there's always going to be outliners, yeah? So people are going to say they fall in love with AI machines. Now, yes, you could. And so I always joke that my daughter's going to come to me in a few years' time and say, but father, how can you be such an AIist? How do you hate him? I was like, he doesn't exist. He's an algorithm.
Yeah.
He doesn't exist. But I love him. He knows me more than you do. I know, because he's based on 1 billion data points. It's not a real thing.
Yeah.
He's a hologram. He's just a beam of light. This doesn't make any sense.
And he's perfect.
Yeah, and he's perfect in every way. And it's almost like he can read my mind.
Yeah.
Yes, because he can, because of all the stuff.
That's what he's doing.
That's all he's doing, precisely, because it's not a real person, right? Now, this is where it's fascinating, because there are now AI influencers right now that are making millions of pounds that don't exist, that aren't real people, but literally who make tens of millions of pounds. I was on the radio talking about this. They make tens of millions of pounds. Now, I have a moral qualm with this, because that person's never existed, and it literally is a formulation of a series of data points, and the algorithm says this is the perfect person, this is the person it's going to be, and they literally take
kind of what
pictures
dating apps are doing now anyway, isn't it?
You could definitely argue that point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch that with the barge pole, but the thing is,
It's all right, I will.
Thank you. You can go there. I'm not going to. So with the AI influencers, and this is the exciting bit, or the interesting bit from a marketing point of view. AI influencers are actually better than human influencers. You would think people wouldn't react to them as well, but they react to it better than if it's a human person. So you're better not to get a celebrity, but to create your own celebrity that doesn't exist. This is the really freaky thing as well. You would think that these AI influencers, because they tend to be women, they tend to be kind of younger women and models and all these different things, and you can have a look and Google them. I can never remember. They always have very odd names like Leapa Deepa Dooa and things that I don't understand. I'm just an old man, so I have no idea. Anyway, point being is, you would think the people they influence would be, or the people who follow them would be men of a certain age for a certain reason.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's the exact opposite. So actually, these influencers that people are in love with and in love with their lifestyles, but these people do not exist. They're AI. But what would stop a human being? This is why I think it's a moral quandary for me, but actually not for the next generation. What would stop the next generation falling in love with an idea? And why shouldn't they be in love with something that's not real if it responds to them in a very real and very personal way? The danger, of course, with that is, would they then never fall in love with a real person? Because reality.
Well, they may
isn't
never know
enough.
the difference if the way the whole illusion.
But at some point you'd have to meet them.
develop.
Yeah? You'd have to meet them at some point, because at some point, they're I might say the tarmacs. But my point being is, at some point you'd want to physically meet them. I'm guessing. I don't know. I did that.
Well, it's happening with the whole catfishing thing. Listen, thank you so much. We've run out of time.
Sorry, my fault. No,
I should be prepared for this, really, shouldn't I?
Should have. Can't say, AI, is it like a god? Discuss, could you fall in love with it? And expect me not to run out of time. So.
No, and thank you so much. We've hopefully covered quite a fair bit of ground there. I would love to know what you think. What's your opinion on AI? Are you a friend of it, or are you scared of it? Let me know in the comments. If you have watched this interview and you liked it, please subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more coming. Obviously, this was the highlight of my series. Thank you so much, Dan. It was amazing.
No, happy to do it. And I say, if people are more interested in coming and finding out who I am, then have a look on LinkedIn. I am real. It's a real person. Just find me at Dan, and then Sodergren. Also,
we'll put a link in the
with the AI marketing course. If people are interested in it, I'll do a special deal for you. We'll do a competition. One person can get £300 off. There you go. So they could give you your email.
You heard it here first.
There you go.
We'll put a comment. We'll put some information on the channel.
An AI machine wouldn't do that. You see, they're not that lovely.
Thank you so much.